Red Bull had the worst week at the Singaporean Grand Prix. At the Japanese Gran Prix, Max showed better performance, but what about Perez? There are many rumors that suggest that Helmut Marko is thinking about replacing Sergio Perez, and his future in the next seasons is at risk in Red Bull because of a disaster in last week's race. But why is this team in trouble? Why did Perez perform so badly? There are some comments from fans who think it was planned, but what is the truth? Let's check it out in this video. In Singapore, Red Bull faced their toughest weekend in 2 seasons. It was a far cry from their dominant performances this year. The last time they earned fewer points in a single race weekend was in the first race of the 2022 season when both their cars suffered engine failures. If George Russell hadn't miraculously lost his chance at a podium finish in the closing moments of the race, it would have been Red Bull's worst Sunday since the Bahrain Grand Prix in 2022. So, what exactly went wrong in Singapore? Several factors might be responsible for this situation. First, there are new rules in place that restrict flexible wings and address any problems with the cars. Second, it's possible that the racetrack they were on didn't match their car's strengths. Third, maybe the other racing teams have improved and are now on par with them. It could also be a mix of all these factors working together to bring them down. The signs weren't good from Friday's practice sessions. Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez struggled to match the pace of their rivals. Max had been complaining about shifting issues, but typically, Red Bull would fix these problems by qualifying. However, that didn't happen at that time. Saturday's qualifying was even worse, with the pole lap being 1.2 seconds faster than Red Bull's best effort. In the race, things improved slightly, but beating a partially upgraded McLaren isn't much of a consolation when you've been winning all season. Christian Horner acknowledged that their incredible 15-race winning streak had to end at some point. Ferrari and Carlos Sainz deserved credit for their strong performance. Thinking about the situation, Horner said, "We knew coming here it would be expected to have a closer competition, but I think it took us a bit by surprise just how far out we were on Friday. I think that we were just not in the right operating window for the car, particularly over a single lap, and when you're not there, then the tires feel horrible. Everything just doesn't work." Red Bull may have faced a setback in Singapore. While the gap with their rivals was closed, their focus shifted to Japan. In Japan, Red Bull Racing clinched their 6th Formula One Constructors' Championship, securing back-to-back titles. Max Verstappen emerged victorious at the Japanese Grand Prix, extending his dominance with a 13th win in 16 races this season. This victory marked Red Bull's 15th triumph in the 2023 season. At the start, Verstappen faced a challenge from the McLarens of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri as they raced towards the first corner. However, he managed to keep his lead and then control the race from that point onward. This success in Japan puts Verstappen in a prime position to claim the driver's title in Qatar, setting up an exciting showdown for the championship. Max said in the post-race interview, "To win here was great, but the most important was to win the Constructors. I am very proud of everyone working here at the track, but also at the factory. We are having an incredible year. It was quite a straightforward race." Christian Horner was also very impressed with Max's performance, and he said Max was in a different league. "We witnessed something very special today. Max was in a different league. I encourage you to look at the replay on the final lap and focus on turns 5 and 6 and then that high-speed section. It really was quite outstanding and you have to take your hat off to him." But at the same time, isn't Perez's performance questionable? Perez had a tumultuous race weekend in Suzuka, where his fortunes took a sharp downturn. Perez had a difficult start to the race, with contact at the beginning forcing him to pit for a replacement front wing. This incident alone was a setback for the Mexican driver. However, it didn't end there. Perez's troubles continued as he incurred a 5-second penalty for passing Fernando Alonso under safety car conditions on his way into the pits, compounding his woes. Later in the race, he picked up another penalty for colliding with Kevin Magnussen at the hairpin. Perhaps the most astonishing aspect of Perez's Japanese Grand Prix was his decision to retire from the race before serving his second penalty. Formula One rules allow unserved penalties to be converted into grid drops at the next race. Perez's decision to retire and not serve the penalty during the race was a surprising strategic move. Despite these setbacks and the challenges he faced during the race, Perez made a late return to the track on lap 40, almost an hour after initially retiring, to serve his 5-second penalty. This late return to the race added to the dramatic turn of events that characterized his performance in Suzuka. Perez faced a lot of criticism after such a performance in the Japanese Grand Prix. Jan Lammers and Robert Dornbos, who are experts in racing, were not happy with his performance. They both think that Perez might not continue with Red Bull for much longer, and they even mentioned a possible replacement, Lawson. Lammers was quite direct in his criticism, saying, "When you see what Perez is doing with that beautiful car, it's almost criminal." Robert Dornbos also thinks that Perez might not continue with Red Bull after the season. He said, "I think Helmut Marko is completely done with Perez. He has had his good moments, but that was a long time ago. Now he's just causing damage and making a fool of himself." Red Bull keeps saying that Perez has a contract to race for them in 2024 alongside Verstappen, but it's not very likely that we'll see Perez continue with Red Bull after 2024. Many fans believe that being Max's teammate is the real struggle. He is definitely a great driver, which raises the expectations of the team from the second driver too. But Perez himself feels about being a teammate of Max Verstappen. Well, he has spoken about it. This is Perez's third year racing alongside Verstappen at Red Bull, and this season was his toughest. Even though he began the year well, he has talked about the challenges he has faced at Red Bull and trying to keep up with his teammates' consistent performance. Perez explained where he thinks Verstappen is really strong and why it's tough to be as good as him. He said, "Verstappen can adapt very quickly. I struggle a bit more with that. As a result, he managed to get more out of the car and also to do it every weekend. That's something I admire about him." Anyway, Max always and everywhere performs at the top of his game and is always 100%. That's what I find most special about him. He is also a hard worker who understands very well why he is successful. If there is a setback, he knows immediately why. So we can say that Perez's lack of performance is not completely his fault, it's Max's shadow. He definitely made mistakes at the Japanese Grand Prix and he knows well about it. Everyone knows Marko and Horner want the best driver alongside Max, but Perez is performing better than the previous drivers at Red Bull with Max. However, Perez wants to win the Mexico City Grand Prix, which is his home race, because it's a big dream of his. But since Verstappen is extremely hard to beat, achieving that dream might be very difficult. He said, "Apart from becoming world champion, it is my biggest dream. A victory in Mexico means everything to me. It's a war of attrition every year, that home race and the GP in Austin a week earlier. There is a lot that comes at me around those races, but as soon as the visor closes, my focus is on racing. I'm going to do everything I can to win in Mexico." Let's see if Perez can turn his dream into reality and avoid making more mistakes that could affect his future with Red Bull in the upcoming seasons. Also, we'll find out if Red Bull can maintain their lead in the upcoming races, or if they'll face more challenges and errors like they did in the Singapore Grand Prix. Subscribe to our channel, hit the bell icon, and stay tuned for the next updates.